When I was 17 in my final year of high school, I was finally getting somewhere with a girl I liked. I will call her Lynn. Lynn was a big pot smoker. At that time, it really was not something I enjoyed, but I went along with it anyway. I live a few blocks from her, so I always walked before I got a car. Across the street from her house is a park. Often at night, she would instant message me on an OL to come meet her at the park. Sometimes we would sit on the playground at night and talk for hours. Sometimes she would convince me to smoke with her. It was always a very private place to hang out and talk, especially at night. A line of thick trees surrounded the playground and created a sort of natural wall. One night we both snuck out around midnight and met at the playground in the park. We talked for a while. Then Lynn suddenly brightened up, lightly hit me on the shoulder, and said we should play hide and seek. It may sound childish for two seniors in high school to play hide and seek, but it just felt like it would be fun. She told me to go to the trees and count to 30. When I had finished counting, my first instinct was of course to check the playground, and if she was not there, I would head to the picnic match area. We always carried flashlights when we went to the park, because this was before everyone had phones with lights in their pockets. I stepped off the grass onto the wood fiber mulch around the playground. I aimed my flashlight toward the playground, because I guess I was too lazy to climb up there if I did not have to. You know those big plastic circular pieces with many tiny holes that some playgrounds have? Maybe you do not, but one of those was at the highest level of the playground, and through several holes I could see what looked like skin and a jacket, but what stood out the most was her eye looking through one of the holes. Instead of climbing up there right away, I thought it would be fun to tease her. I waved the flashlight around the playground, pretending I had not seen her. I planned to walk to the picnic area, turn on the flashlight, walk back to the trees, return to the playground, sneak up on her, and scare the life out of her. Do not ask me why. I just felt like doing it. I walked to the picnic area, turned off the flashlight, and quietly made my way back to the playground. I tried hard not to make any noise as I moved through the wood chips beneath the playground. Before I could even step onto the first platform, something grabbed my arm and yanked me. I actually let out a scream, but stopped as soon as I heard Lynn laughing. I turned on the flashlight and felt relieved when I saw it was her. The prank had completely failed on my part. After that, we went back to the second-level platform of the playground where we usually sat. I asked her if she knew I saw her behind that plastic piece at the top of the playground, but she looked puzzled. She acted like she had never gone up there. I told her that I clearly saw someone above us. We both looked up as the faint creaking sounds we had been noticing from time to time suddenly made a frightening amount of sense. I pointed the light upward, revealing a person's head lowered over the railing of the platform above us. At that same moment, we heard footsteps moving through the wood chips, right below the platform we were sitting on. I reacted first and made a dash for it, and Lynn followed right behind me. I turned off my flashlight as we ran, which was not a long distance since Lynn's house was right across the street. We went into her room, closed the curtains, and I stayed there for the night because I did not want to go home. That moment brought an end to our late-night trips to the park. Do you have any memories from when you were a small child that make you uneasy to think about, especially because you were so young that you did not understand anything at the time? Well, this one is mine. My mom used to bring me to a very large playground in my town, and when I say very large, I am not exaggerating. It was probably the biggest playground you could ever see. I only wish I remembered the name of it. The entire playground was made of wood, and every Saturday and Sunday there would be at least 50 kids running around, while the parents stayed in the shaded area, reading their magazines and whatever else they brought. One normal crowded day at the playground, I was running across a big open platform when an older woman stopped me and said hello. She continued talking about how adorable I was and how much she loved my blonde hair. The way she spoke made it seem like she already knew me, and then she told me that my mom had left and asked her to bring me home. Keep in mind, I was only 6, so I believed her. The woman led me to the parking lot, to an old station wagon, where a man I now assume was her husband sat in the driver's seat. He acted friendly toward me while the woman motioned for me to get into the back seat, but I remember him shouting and scolding her about something. The man drove in a very rough and fast manner as he pulled out of the parking lot. We reached the light at the exit of the park. It was red. At that moment, a car pulled up behind us and blasted the horn. I looked behind us, and it was my mom's car. The man sped through the red light, which even I recognized was wrong, and started racing down the streets. I began to cry and scream as it became clear that my mom did not know these people. Soon after, the man pulled the car over and shouted at me at the top of his lungs to get out. I opened the door, still crying in pure fear. My mom drove up next to me, jumped out of her car, and hugged me tightly. In the chaos of the moment, she did not get the plate number, and she could not call the police because this was 2001, and cell phones were not something she had. I truly wish I did not remember that day so clearly. I would have preferred it to be one of those memories the mind chooses to hide. I am a single father, and I live with my 5-year-old son. In my backyard, there is an old wooden playground. It has a tire swing, monkey bars, and a long slide. A few times recently, I have heard sounds coming from the playground at night. I will begin with the first night. I woke up one night last week to the noise of something squeaking outside. I recognized it as the rusty chain of the tire swing turning around. I also heard the laughter of a small child out there. I assumed it was my son, so I went to his room and found him sleeping peacefully in his bed. My heart dropped when I saw him there. That meant a stranger was in my yard. But when I opened the back door and stepped outside, no one was out there. The tire swing was turning slowly, though, as if someone had just stepped off it. I convinced myself it was simply a kid sneaking into the yard and went back to sleep. The next night, however, I woke again to the sound of someone running up and down the slide, along with that same childlike laughter. I checked my son's room again and found him asleep. This time I decided to be smarter and look through the window first before going outside. There was nothing visible out there, at least not on the playground. I still went outside to be sure. For a few nights after that, nothing happened, and I stopped thinking about it. But on the third night, while I was lying in bed, a knock on my window startled me. I sat up in shock for a full minute, too afraid to look outside. After a moment, I gathered the courage. I looked out through the fogged window. Through the smear, I saw both swings on the swing set moving lightly, along with that same child's laughter. I ran as fast as I could down the stairs and out the back door, but instead of finding a few troublemaking kids, I saw a tall figure standing at the top of my playground, clearly staring at me. My bravery turned into complete fear as I ran back inside, locked the door, and called 911. Waiting for an officer to arrive felt like the longest 20 minutes of my life. By the time they finally showed up, the figure on the playground had disappeared. They wrote down the little information I was able to give and then left. I wish I could say that was the final incident, but just last night there was another knock at my window. This time I chose to ignore it. I am terrified of going to sleep tonight. I think I will install security cameras around the house soon. In any case, I will share an update on whatever happens next. I was 13 years old. My bedroom window looked out over the playground. It was a warm spring night with a light rain, so I kept the window open, letting in the sound of the raindrops along with a strange squeaking noise. It started to really bother me, so I went to the window to figure out what it was. Someone was sitting on the swing set. I almost screamed, but I covered my mouth just in time. What made it even more terrifying was that the swing sat in a perfect line with my window, and the person on it was staring directly at my window. I could only pray they had not seen me. I was too frightened to walk across the house to my parents' room. All I wanted to do was hide under my blankets and hope the person would leave, but the squeaking continued nonstop. I covered my ears, partly from fear and partly from the irritation of that constant sound. Finally, after what felt like forever, the squeaking stopped. I waited a few seconds before quietly getting out of bed and returning to the window. This time I really did scream. The person who had been on the swing was now standing no more than 10 feet from my window, staring inside, close enough for me to see his awful face and his eyes fixed on mine. But only for a second or two, because I ran straight to my parents' room, yelling for my dad the entire way. My dad looked out the window and then went outside. He came back about 5 minutes later and said there were boot marks under the swings where the mud had gathered, but he could not find whoever made them. This was without a doubt the most terrifying moment of my life.